Yes, he's always like this.
And this is A&B Convos Wrestling Edition.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, A&B Convos proudly brings to you its YouTube Wrestling Review, Champions of the World! The Road Dogg A, the Bad Bleep B. A and B Convos Wrestling Edition!
Yes, he's always like this.
Maybe a little too much energy, but you know what? Let me go ahead and say we are so glad to be here. We're going to be bringing you, well, some critiques today. We do have some thoughts, but first, a little disclaimer. If you're new to the channel, please know that we do a lot of comedy skits. We just uploaded a new one, Lifting A is a B. If you haven't seen that, make sure to check it out. But we are also huge professional wrestling fans. So we like to do
Huge.
It's huge. No. So we like to bring you wrestling reviews of Monday Night Raw, SmackDown Live, and then we have the Wednesday Night Wars with NXT and AEW. We will also be bringing you pay-per-views like WrestleMania,
WrestleMania's
Royal
coming.
Rumble, Super Showdown, things like that. So just in case you don't know, now you know. And you better tell somebody!
I wasn't on that page with you. I went outside of wrestling to what we always do. Now you know. And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe.
I just kept it with the wrestling with the Road Dogg.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's okay.
Sorry.
All right, so let's get right into it. We're not going to take up too much of your time, but like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a critique show. We're going to start with, well, we're really, I don't even know.
Okay, we are thoroughly disappointed in Shayna's, I guess, I want to say her premiere, but I mean her debut, whatever it is, right? You come up to the main roster, and now in NXT there was a lot. You've heard us talk about her before, and you've said that you could see that she's holding back. And we always talk about when you come from NXT to the main roster that you tone it down, you water it down, and that is our biggest critique anyway. It's like you're like, okay, now don't do the same kick-ass job you did in NXT when you come up here. We don't want to hurt anybody. But for Shayna's match against Kyrie to be as horrible as it was.
Horrible. And apparently we weren't the only ones that took note of that. Okay, check this out. I don't know what we were watching, but it wasn't a wrestling match, okay? Even watching Shayna in NXT, her punches are terrible, her kicks are terrible. For somebody who is a mixed martial artist, who has kicked butt up and down the octagon, I really expected a lot more from her than I've seen. And I don't know why in the squared circle, you just don't know what you're doing. And
well, here's the other thing. Like, she has the look. I like the name. I like her music. I love her, the spade thing. I mean, she has it all. She has the background. You know she'd kick your ass in real life. But, you know, and maybe because, like I've talked about before, when you are a deadly weapon, that maybe they're like, you know, pull back, don't hurt anybody. But that is not what wrestling in the days of old was. People did get hurt. You did get bruises. And we bought the performance because we didn't buy 1 second of the performance last night.
not at all, not at all. And I'm going to tell you, Kairi Sane is much better than we've seen. To be honest with you, I kind of feel right now, although I love the Kabuki Warriors, I love their style, love their new entrance music, love it. But, and Kairi Sane is actually pretty funny, which is great. But she's a really good in-ring technician. Much better than we've been seeing lately. I almost feel like it's on a iconic level of comedy. And that was that, but we already know that they're going to be rebranded, and they're being rebranded for a reason. So when you get into the ring, knuckle up. I like what's said, you know, put your hair up and square up, okay? I don't see it.
And if you think we're being too harsh on her, we are going to give you an example right now. We are going to give you an example of the wrong way to kick somebody and to make us believe you're backing them into, like you have them, you know, hemmed up in the corner. And the right way to show somebody a performance, to make somebody buy a move, and to make us believe that that hurt.
That's all we're saying. That's all we're saying, okay? We, again, understand and know full good and well what professional wrestling is and it isn't. But like she said, okay, this is about the performance. We just saw The Rock at the Performance Center giving a very rousing speech to all of the performers there, including his daughter, about selling the move, buying the move, getting into this. NXT has generally been slightly different, although this week,
Tegan in the very beginning was doing the same thing. Tegan wasn't even connecting. She was actually hitting Dakota Kai, like hitting her hair. And like you always say, we can see you.
We can see you.
I feel like they're so concerned with selling someone else's move. So you're gonna hit me, so I'm ready to sell your move so it looks legit, but they don't seem to understand selling us your move. When Shayna Baszler went to kick, she barely picked her leg up and like tapped her in the back. There was no force. She didn't even try to act like pick her leg up high, like there was no energy at all.
I didn't even think it was possible to wrestle in slow motion legitimately. She does.
She does. She wrestles in slow motion. And then the people with her have to slow down to try and be on. It just looks like someone pushed the slow-mo.
It's terrible. And it's nothing to be invested in. So speaking of pushing the slow-mo, we press the fast forward to get to the very next match. And that's not how it should be. But everybody started at the Performance Center. And we've watched the Performance Center. We know what these coaches tell everybody, that you need to be committed to every single thing that you do and make us believe in everything that you're doing in that ring. So I really find it very hard to believe that they have passed these people from the Performance Center to go to NXT onto the main stage of Raw and SmackDown, wrestling the way that you do. I mean, for example, how in the world do you have one of the worst in-ring technicians be your Raw Women's Champion? And I'm talking about the man, Becky Lynch. Love her persona now, much better than it was before, but in the ring, you're terrible.
She's terrible, and now that Shayna's there, Shayna, because she's a worse wrestler than Becky, which I didn't even know was possible,
Didn't even know.
She could be champion, because apparently we're just all about their look and their character and their persona, because in-ring technical skills on women doesn't seem to matter right now. And I felt like back in the day, women knew they were in a man's sport and they were trying to hang with the men, so they were being tough. They weren't just being Glow. I feel like our women's division is turning into Glow.
As a matter of fact, let's go to back in the day, okay? Because you might remember somebody that became a Hall of Famer by the name of Jazz, all right? Jazz came out there, she looked scary, she looked the part, 100%, and when she got into that ring, it was all about business. Another horrible wrestler that, again, I cannot believe is the SmackDown Women's Champion in Bayley. You cut your hair, you're coming out looking like a sad puppy dog. I will say, the caliber of your wrestling has gone up maybe a smidge from when you were the hugger, but you still stink.
And then of course we have Miss Bliss, who just hops her little gymnastic self around the ring, doing somersaults and little backflips and making sure not to hurt nobody.
Hurt nobody. Ain't gonna hurt nobody. We just wrestling, y'all. Ain't gonna hurt nobody. All up in the ring.
So, yeah, and the bottom line is, like, half the time Alexa doesn't even connect. And so we're going to bring this back to the powers that be, because no one there has done anything about this or seems to care about this. And so I guess, and I don't know, maybe Paul Heyman doesn't think the women should actually have to need to really wrestle. Maybe he doesn't respect women wrestling to that level. I'm not quite sure. But what I do know is that someone from WWE needs to take a few notes from Triple H over at NXT and realize that the wrestling does matter. The connection matters with the women too. And step your game up. I was just happy about Raw last week. And now I'm like,
what is going on? There was a 30-second match with the Bellas that, let's give Divas a chance. Fine, things changed. We've got a brand new women's title. We've got women's tag titles. Still no SmackDown women's tag titles. I don't get it. I don't understand. So either they're on the same level as the male superstars, or they're not. But you just can't give a smidge and then leave it there or take it right back. Doesn't make any sense. It looks ridiculous. We're not buying it. Just like we're not buying the 24/7 title trying to be passed off as a legitimate title.
Knock it off. You're ruining the title with that.
Where's our truth? Seriously. Seriously. Okay, I understand what Mick Foley was trying to do back in the day. We mentioned this in a previous video. But years ago, they destroyed the Winged Eagle belt to make it the hardcore title. And people bought that. This essentially became that. But this is, again, probably the ugliest designed belt we have ever seen.
For sure.
It is a complete eyesore, and I want to throw up every time I see it. It's already green, so would anybody notice? Would you notice? Would you notice?
But more importantly, Bray Wyatt lost to Goldberg. He doesn't even go here. Not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
Not okay.
Not okay.
Not okay. And then you want to keep bringing back The Undertaker every year. I mean, clearly he needs a paycheck, because I don't really understand. Because it doesn't make any sense. And then you try to make beef out of nowhere, and instead of doing the smart thing and doing a Goldberg Undertaker rematch to try to fix what happened last time, you have, like with Goldberg, make him the champion to pass on, I guess, to Roman. And then you have Undertaker fighting AJ Styles. Why? Why? Who? What? Huh? Who?
No.
What?
No.
What? We just making stuff up, pulling stuff out of the air.
Yeah, seriously. Writers, what are you doing? How is it that ourselves, when we've talked to many people, see it the same way? Last year's Super Showdown between The Undertaker and Goldberg was a complete disaster. People have been talking about that for the last year. In fact, people were talking about The Undertaker's loss at WrestleMania for years. It was a mistake, Vince. You were wrong to do it, but that's neither here nor there.
I got it. Remember, he just recently Vince just recently fired a whole bunch of writers. So maybe he hired the people who wrote Game of Thrones and ruined that ending.
The last season.
Yeah, and in the last season, they didn't bother to care about anyone's character or storylines or wrap anything up. So maybe that's what's going on right here, is that they don't actually even know these people well enough to know what kind of storylines, what goes together, how wrestling works.
You don't have your finger on the pulse of the WWE universe, okay? What people wanted to see, just like she said, all right? You wanted to go ahead and make a push for Goldberg, who's a legend. We respect everything that he's done. Granted.
Done.
But you can't have The Fiend be this unstoppable force. Nobody can beat him, except all of a sudden, 4 or 5 spears, a jackhammer, a half jackhammer. He really couldn't get him up. And then he wins. We don't buy that. You can't build somebody up like this and then all of a sudden just lose like that. But okay, granted. If this is the way you want to go, fine. Let Goldberg be the Universal Champion. Then what should have happened, gong, lights go out, Undertaker comes back, rematch, okay? Redemption at Super Showdown from last year's Super Showdown. But apparently WWE still wants to push the big dog, Roman Reigns, which again, we get, is fine. This push really turned the WWE Universe against them. You clearly do not learn from your history. But again, if this is the way you want to go, to have Roman Reigns face Goldberg for the Universal title, what you should have done is made it a triple threat match. And then it should have been Goldberg, Taker, Reigns, Universal title at WrestleMania. That is a WrestleMania worthy match, okay? Put in some blood, sweat, and tears. Nobody cares about Taker facing AJ Styles.
No,
nobody. That is weak sauce.
There's no background, there's no history, there's no
nothing.
Trash that you could even talk to one another. It's you're
Makes
not
no sense.
invested.
Makes no sense. And if you're seriously telling us that's going to be the WrestleMania match, at this point, I don't even care if Taker wins or loses. I really don't. The streak is broken, so who cares? Who? All right, so that is it. Those are our critiques, the state of the union we feel in WWE right now. Let us know what you think by leaving a comment below. Do you agree, disagree? We definitely want to hear from you.
Absolutely, but if you decide to jump on so that you could just call names and be inappropriate and, you know, children, we're gonna delete your comment.
Block and delete. We're not having it. Okay? Keep it clean. Keep it clean. Keep it classy. We are classy. Thank you guys once again for watching another A&B Convos
Wrestling Edition.
And we will see you
down the road.
Come here. Come on, Bone Crusher.
Bone Crusher!
Oh, see you down the road. Bye, everybody.